Here we go.
Okay. An ox was offered with 24, the head, the hind leg, the head with one, the hind leg with two, the tail and the hind leg, the tail with two, and the hind leg with two, the breast and the breast with one, and the neck with three, the two forelegs with two, the two sides with the two, intestines, the fine flour, and the wine with three each. In which cases do the pie for communal sacrifices, but for personal sacrifices, if he wanted to offer, he may do so. The flaying, the section of these and of those are the same. The administrator said to them, "Go out and see if the time for slaughtering has arrived." And if it arrived, the one who sees it says Barkay. Mataya ben Yishmael says the whole of the east is lit up. As far as Hebron, he says yes. Why was this necessary? Because one time the moon's light rose, and they thought the east had lit up. So they slaughtered the daily sacrifice, and then had to take it out to the place of burning. They took the coat and got it down to the mikvah. This was the rule in the temple. Whoever moved his bowels needed immersion. Whoever urinated needed to wash his hands and feet. Okay. All right.
Okay. Right, Gimel. Ein Adam nichnas le'azar lavoda afilu tahor. So here's again a general rule that even if a person is completely tahor, okay, he hasn't come into contact with any kind of tumah whatsoever,
Right.
but he wants to come to the temple, you still got to go to mikveh in the morning. That's just the rule. You have to go. You still have to go to the ad sheyitzbol. Okay. Chamesh tevilos v'asar kiddushin tovel kohen gadol umekadesh bo bayom. So that's this, and it's the same thing with the kohen gadol, and it's a kal v'chomer actually we learn out from the kohen gadol because this kohen gadol is like as tahor as you're ever going to get on Yom Kippur, and yet he does 10 tevilos.
Right.
Because
Right.
chamesh tevilos, five tevilos and ten kiddushin. In other words, washing his hands and feet, because he washed his hands and feet before and after the mikveh every day. Okay, so he's so right. So what does he do? Five tevilas, and ten kiddushin that he does on Yom Kippur. V'chulan b'kodesh al beis parva. So all of them go, but one are in the mikveh that's inside the azara, that's in the beis
Right.
parva. Chutz mizo bilvad. Only the first one is done outside because before he's allowed to enter the azara, he has
Okay.
to
Right.
he has to go to the mikveh. Right. So. Continues. Persuk sadin shel butz beino lebein ha'am. So they would put up a linen sheet between him and the people, in order to give him a little bit of privacy when he's going into the mikveh there. Pashat yarad v'taval. So he would take off his clothes, go down and tovel. Allah Nistapag gets up, dries himself off. Hevielo big days ahav. Now bring him his regular Kohen Gadol clothing with the eight garments. In other words, they call the golden garments because that includes the tzitz and the choshen which had gold in them, and the ma'il which had a golden thread in it, and the ephod also had that golden thread. Right, so all of that, so there's a lot of gold involved there, and that's why they call it the big days of Hav. Lavash, so he puts these clothes on, v'kidesh yadav v'raglav, and once again he washes his hands and feet. Hevielo is hatamid, and the first avoda of the day is the tamid, which normally, as we know, any kohen can do the tamid, but today everything is on the kohen gadol. Okay. Kratzo merek achashchita al yado. So he shechted it and did the and somebody else. So he started the shchita. He did a kosher shchita, but somebody else had to grab the knife off him and finish the cut so that he would also be the one who'd be able to catch the blood. Okay, kibel es adam. So he would then catch the blood in the kli, and he would go and take it and throw it on the mizbech. Nichnas lahaktir ketois shel shachar. Then next job is the incense, right? He has got to go and do the incense in the morning. Ulahetiv esaneros, and he would also have to do the candles of the menorah. Ulahakriv es harosh ve'es ha'ivarim ve'es hachavitin ve'es hayayin, and he also has to bring the head. So the head of the tamid, right? The head and all the limbs. So he's not so right. We just learned about the tamid that it's that normally you've got like X number 13 Kohanim who are coming and bringing everything. Again, everything today is on the Kohen Gadol, so he's got to come and take all of the parts and bring them all up onto the Mizbeach. That's all. It's all going to be on him. As a chavitin, chavitin is well, that's the Kohen Gadol's regular daily offering. He brings half in the morning, half in the afternoon, and the wine libations that come with it. Mishnah Hay. Ketoris shel shachar haisa kreva bein dam le'ivarim. Okay, so the morning incense was brought between the blood surface and the limbs. So he would first, he first sprinkles the blood, and he leaves the limbs on the ramp, and then he goes back and does the morning incense. Shel ben harbayim, right? There's afternoon katoris as well. Okay, that is between the bein evarim and nesachim. So then that one's done after having put the limbs on the mizbeach. Uh, before bringing up the wine libations
Yeah.
and the flour, right? Im haya
Right.
kohen gadol zaken or istanis. Now, what happens if the kohen gadol is old, or he's just otherwise just uncomfortable with getting into a cold mikveh? Mechamin lo chamin. They would bring him preheated hot water. Umetinin lesoch hatzonen, and they would pour the hot water into the cold water in the mikveh, which, as you know from mikvahs, once the basic mikveh is kosher, you're allowed to put mayim shovin into it. Okay, as long as the first 40 sa'ah is all from proper water, so they pour hot water into it. Kadesh tafug tzinasan, so that wouldn't to take off the edge of the chill. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Good.
that's it for new Mishnayos.
Shalom. Okay. We have hey Olive. Hospital that is found.
It's shkalim. That's ches base. Yeah.
Well, that's base. I'm sorry. I'm being the wrong person. That's base. I'm sorry. All the utensils that are found in Yerushalayim on the path leading down to the mikvah are assumed to be tummy, but those found on the path leading up are assumed to be tahor. For the path of the descent is not the path of the ascent. These are the words of Meah. And Roshi says all that are assumed to be tahor except for the basket, the shovel, the spade, and the reserve for grave nights. The knife which was found on the 14th of Nisan may be used immediately for slaughter, but if it was found on the 13th of Nisan, he must immerse it again. And a meat cleaver, whether found on the 13th or 14th, he must immerse again, unless the 14th fell on Shabbos. In which case, he may slaughter it immediately, but if it was found on the 15th of Nisan, he may slaughter with it immediately. If it was found tied to a knife, it is considered as a knife. A curtain has been contaminated through contact with a secondary tumah. They immerse it within the temple complex and they bring it immediately. If it was contaminated through contact with the primary tumah, they immerse it outside the temple complex. And if they spread it out to dry in the chal, it was a new curtain that would spread it out upon the roof of the portico so that the people may see their handiwork. It was beautiful.
Okay.
Okay, Sachem.
Sachem.
Okay. When one does bring a chag with it, when it is offered on a weekday, impurity and it's insufficient. But when it is offered on Sabbath or is abundant in contamination with that chag with it. A chag may be brought up from the flock, from cattle, from sheep, or from goats, from males or females, and it may be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. If one slaughtered the Pesach offering for some other designation on the Sabbath, he is liable therefore for a sin offering, and all the other sacrifices that he slaughtered with the designation of a Pesach offering, if they were suitable, he was liable for a sin offering. But if they are suitable, then Rabbi Eliezer obligates him to bring a sin offering, but Rabbi Shua absolves him. Rabbi Eliezer says, if the Pesach which is permitted on Sabbath for his own designation, if he changed his designation, is liable, then other sacrifices which are forbidden on Sabbath, even for their own designations, if he changed their designation, should surely be liable. Rabbi Shua said to him, not so. If you say thus about a Pesach or not the Pesach, when he changed it to a forbidden matter, you will say thus of other sacrifices when he changed it to a permitted matter. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, let public offerings prove it, whether permitted to be offered on their own designations, yet one who slaughters other sacrifices for the designations is liable. Rabbi Yeshua said to him, not so. If you say those are public offerings which have a limit, will you say thus in the Pesach, which has no limit? The Mayor says, even for one who slaughters other sacrifices for the designation of public offering is not liable. We are into Shabbos. Okay. Yud Aleph. We may not roast meat, onions, or eggs unless there's sufficient time for them to become roasted while it's day yet day. We may not place bread in the oven near nightfall, nor a cake upon coals unless there's sufficient time for its upper surface to form a crust while it is yet day. Elias says sufficient time for its bottom surface to form a crust. We may lower the Pesach offering into the oven near nightfall, and we may ignite the chips with chips to fire the pyre of the temple fire. But in the country, if this may not be done unless there's sufficient time for the fire to take most of them, hold most of them. Rabbi Yehuda says, with charcoal is permitted as long as there's sufficient time for the fire to take hold. With what may be like the Sabbath light, but what may be not like. We may not like either cedar bast, nor uncarded flax, nor floor silk, nor willow bast, nor desert fiber, nor seymour, nor with light, nor with pitch, nor with wax, nor with copper tea, nor with oil that must be burnt, nor with it from fat for a sheep's tail, nor with tallow. Malcolm the Meat says we may light with boiled tallow, but the sages say whether it's boiled or not boiled, we may not light with it. And Judayim Olive Dollar. If one rinse utensils in the water or it scrubbed measures with the water, it is invalid. However, if he rinsed it in the water as vessels that were already rinsed, so they renew the water is valid. Rabbi Yossi invalidates the water in the case of the utensils. The water into which the baker dips the rolls is invalid, but if he rinses his hands in it, it is valid. Everyone is qualified to pour water on hands, even a deaf mute, an imbecile, or a minor. And one may place a barrel between his knees and wash his hands from it. One may turn the barrel inside and wash his hands from it, and an ape may pour water over his hands. Rabbi Yossi invalidates the netila in this last two cases. If one washes one hand with a single rinse, his hands are sour. But if he washes two hands with a single rinse, Reb Meir rules in tummy unless he washes them with a reed of water. If a loaf of tuma fell into water, it is sour, and Reb Yossi rules it common. Okay, we are on to this is okay. Daled Gimel. Reb Shimon Suri says, and Reb Shimon say they did not. Reb Shimon Suri and Reb Shimon say they did not dispute that concerning anything of one category is liable. Concerning what do they differ? Concerning something of two categories. That Reb Eliezer holds him liable to a katos, and Reb Yehuda exempts him. Said Reb Yehuda, even if he tended to pick figs and he picked grapes, to pick grapes and he picked figs, black ones and he picked white ones, or pick white ones and he picked black ones, Reb Eliezer holds him liable to a katos, and Reb Yeshua exempts him. But said Reb Yehuda, I'm amazed that Reb Yehuda exempts him in this case. So what? If so, why is it stated in which he sinned? This is to exclude an unwitting act. Slaughter blood of cattle, beasts, fowl, whether clean or unclean, blood shed as a result of piercing, or blood that is shed of a tearing, or the blood of bloodletting, which life now escapes, they are liable for it. The blood of the spleen, the blood of the heart, the blood of the eggs, the blood of the fish, the blood of locusts, and the blood that oozes out, they are not liable for it. And Rabbi Yehuda holds one liable for the blood that oozes out. Rabbi Kiva says one liable for an ashen tuli for the deadful case of Mila, but some exempt him. Rabbi Kiva agrees, however, that he does not bring restitution and becomes known to him and becomes accompanied with the unconditional ashen. Said Reb Tarfon, why should this person bring two ashamos? Rather let him bring restitution and it's fifth, and let him bring an ashem for two salem and say, I am surely guilty of Meila. Let this be my restitution and be my ashem. And if it is doubtful, the money is a donation and the ashem is an ashem tule. Four, from the same person from which he brings an obligation of doubt, he brings an obligation of certainty. Okay, and last we have Baba Kama.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if one invites a sack of grain and utensils in it and they burn, Rabbi Yehuda says he must pay for what was inside. The sages have said, however, say he pays for only a sack of wheat or barley. If there was a kid bound to it and a slave near it and it was burned with it and he was burned with it, he is liable. A slave bound to it and a kid near it and it was burned with it is exempt. But concur with Rabbi Yehuda in the case of what igniting a large tower, for he pays for all that was inside it, for it's customary for people to place things in houses. If a spark flies out from under a hammer and damages, he is liable. If a camel that is laden with flax stands in the public domain and flax protrudes into a shop and catches fire from the shopkeeper's lamp that ignites the large tower, the owner of the camel is liable. If the shopkeeper leaves his lamp outside, the shopkeeper is liable. The Yehuda says in the case of a Hanukkah light, he is exempt. Whew. The rule of twofold payments is more inclusive than the rule of fourfold and fivefold payments. For the rule of twofold payment applies to living things and to inanimate objects, whereas the rule of fourfold and fivefold payments apply exclusively with regard to an ox or a lamb. As it is said, a man sells an ox or a lamb and slaughters it, sells it, or sells it. One who steals after a thief does not pay the twofold payment, nor does one who slaughters or sells after a thief pays a fourfold or fivefold payment. Whoa. Okay. One more.
That
That was it?
Okay. Yeah, well done.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I will see you.